Bad language coming at ya. Don't watch if you're a kid. Hey everyone, Wino's here, ready to talk about a couple of movies I recently saw. Not so much going to be a review, more a comparison of the two, because I saw a lot of similarities between them, but I liked one considerably more. The movies were The Tomorrow War, which I watched last night, and Army of the Dead, which I watched when it came out about a month ago, maybe a little longer. And not going to keep you in suspense. If you clicked on the video, I think you saw the title. The one I liked more was The Tomorrow War. Now, neither one is necessarily the best movie in the world. I don't think they're going to be hitting all-time great lists. But Tomorrow War, I quite enjoyed. I might even watch it again sometime. Whereas Army of the Dead, look, I didn't hate it. Definitely didn't love it. On the, brink of even liking it. Like, honestly, I just found it overwhelmingly average. And I doubt I'll ever watch it again, especially to have to sit through 2.5 hours of it. So, Rotten Tomatoes, I checked before I came here. The critics don't agree with me. They had Tomorrow War at 54% when I checked, and they had Army of the Dead at 68%. But last 10 years or so, I'm pretty much never on the same page with the critics and on the same page with the audience who agree with me. They had Tomorrow War at 82%, and Army of the Dead not too far behind at 75%. So I think I liked it a little less than the audience did. But I definitely had Tomorrow War above Army of the Dead. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, this is a full spoiler warning. You've been warned. Let's get into it. Yeah, so I haven't looked at any videos on the Tomorrow War, but to me the similarities seem kind of obvious. Don't know if anyone else picked up on them. I'm sure they have. But when I was about an hour into Tomorrow War, I remember I messaged my mate and said, so far it feels like a more competent version of Army of the Dead. And he agreed, so I thought, why not make this video? So just in case people didn't see the similarities I did, I thought I'd run through them here. The first one is the heart of the story all hinges on a father-daughter relationship. Yes, they got a bigger threat going on around them that's also driving the plot, but the main thrust of the story to me in both of them is that father-daughter relationship. That's where the character moments happen, and you got character and plot generally that make story, and quite often characters the thing you latch onto more. So we had that, and I think Tomorrow War did that relationship better, but I'll get into that as the video goes on. The next similarity was that they both had a monster threat, and both their monsters were somewhat mindless, but also had some level of intelligence. You had the semi-intelligent zombies in Attack of the Army of the Dead, and you had the animalistic, but still seem to have some intelligence on them, aliens in the Tomorrow War. Especially the Queen. She seemed to have a bit of an idea what was going on there. Next similarity, we both had them do clear mimics in certain parts of the Aliens franchise. Aliens, that franchise. It was Alien for the Tomorrow War, and that was towards the end when they found the crashed alien ship. Very much like in Alien when they arrived on the planet and found that long dormant ship. And the design of the Tomorrow War ship was somewhat similar. It had some Geigerish elements. It had a similar feel to it. They get into the cockpit, and there was a different type of alien that had clearly been piloting the ship, very much like the space jockey in Alien. And that had been transporting the aliens that they actually end up fighting, very much like in Tomorrow War. So you see your space jockey was carrying the xenomorph in Alien, and whatever that alien was in Tomorrow War was carrying the white spikes, which is the name of the aliens. And in Army of the Dead, they had a lot of aliens references. Probably too much to go through, but two big ones were the Paul Reiser character type influence, the guy who's working for the higher ups who put them on the mission and has an ulterior motive and is willing to sell out the rest of the crew, like let the rest of the crew die in order to fulfill this objective. And in Army of the Dead, it was to get a zombie head so they could like study it and see what makes the zombies and use the zombies as a weapon, which was fucking dumb. That was so fucking stupid. Like, why would you use these uncontrollable zombies to unleash war on other countries? They're going to spread around the world and end up in an apocalypse. Yeah, but I digress. Another reason why I wasn't the hugest fan of that movie. But the other aliens mimic in Army of the Dead was, right near the end when they're trying to escape and they run out to the helipad and the helicopter's not there. Just like in Aliens when they run to the holding space. I forget what that's called on a ship, just having a mind blank. And the ship's not there. And then it comes up from below frame and it's like, you son of a bitch, you're still here. And then they run over to it and the monster comes out, the xenomorph in Aliens and the leader of the smart zombies in Army of the Dead. And it also had, the hero with somewhat of a daughter. I know Newt wasn't Ripley's daughter, but she'd pretty much taken on an adoptive mother role throughout that movie. And, Batista's got his daughter coming as well. So very strong alien, you could almost call it copies, not necessarily paying homage, just kind of biting straight from Alien, more so and more clumsily done in Army of the Dead. So once more, a similarity. Then you have in the story, they were a ragtag group, like a tactical group put together, made up of mainly civilians. I know in Army of the Dead, they'd had some somewhat militaristic experience from escaping the city in the first place, escaping Vegas in the first place. But we see that in the montage, and we also see in that montage that they were all just like regular civilian people when it happened, and that it was kind of thrust on them to be like that. And that was very much like we have in the Tomorrow War, where they just recruit civilians because they sent the army there first, and the army just got destroyed. Only like 20% came back or something. So now they recruit civilians and they don't even really train them up and they just send them in there. And not only did we have the ragtag group of civilians forming like a tactical unit, they're both on retrieving missions. For Army of the Dead, it was pretty much the whole movie going on a heist to bring some money back from a vault, whereas in the Tomorrow War, they were trying to get some vials that had a toxin in them that could take out the aliens that they were fighting. Like, it was a research lab where they'd been working on that stuff. They had some biomaterial. They had some other stuff they had to grab. But yeah, ragtag group of civilians has to go and retrieve something. So yeah, that was another similarity. And just checking, when they do that, the area that they go into is about to be blown up by some government force, and so they got a ticking clock that they have to be able to retrieve their thing and get out by. Next similarity, look, it's a negative one for both of them. The runtimes. I thought the runtimes on both of them were too long. I like my big blockbuster popcorn movies, which both of these pretty much were, to, generally come in at least under 2 hours. They were both around an hour and a half. Like, Tomorrow War was about, not an hour and a half, 2.5 hours. Tomorrow War was around 2 hours and 20 minutes with credits, and Army of the Dead was around 2.5 hours, I believe, with credits. But, like, you don't need that much time. I think they, like, Tomorrow War used it a bit better. You could have taken it down to just a smidge, under 2 hours, I reckon. Haven't really thought about what to cut there. I'd probably just cut a bit of the length of some of the action scenes. And then in Army of the Dead, I mean, that really should have been about an hour and a half long movie. That you could have got that story done in an hour and a half. Like, all the scenes dragged on too long. They had scenes you didn't need, and it was just overindulgent, just classic Zack Snyder, really. And especially for Army of the Dead, about an hour and a half in, I was kind of like, look, I've somewhat been enjoying this, but I think I'm about, ready to check out on it. Hopefully it's only got about, 10, 20 minutes left. And then I looked at the time left and there was an hour and I was like, you've got to be shitting me. So, yes, the runtime. And then another similarity, this was just a small one, but a chainsaw. A chainsaw was a bit of a similarity in both. Black guy using a chainsaw. Tomorrow War did it better because they just, one, they let him use the chainsaw on the monster, and two, they didn't build it up like it was going to be some huge thing. He just popped out of the screen, had a chainsaw we hadn't really seen yet, and just carved up this monster, and it was fantastic. Whereas in Army of the Dead, once again, the black guy in that, he had a chainsaw that was supposedly for killing zombies, and he didn't want anyone else to touch it, and they kept building up the importance of this chainsaw, and he never used it to kill one goddamn zombie. Not one! He used it to, cut into the vault or something, and you're like, man, what a dick tease. All right. Now, getting into the next section, we got the setup. And from here on, look, those similarities were just me listing similarities and a little commentary on why I thought some of them were better or worse. But from here on, it's basically me comparing stuff and telling you why I thought Tomorrow War was better, generally in all the areas I'm going to talk about. Now, the setup, that all-important dad-daughter relationship that we already touched on, that was set up so much better in Tomorrow War. The whole family aesthetic was set up better. You could see they really loved each other. You could see he really loved his daughter. And they also set up so well how he bonded with her over science. Like, she was freaking out about, because once you heard about what was that these aliens were going to come, she's a little girl. She knows they're coming in 30 years and the whole world's going to be destroyed. And she's shitting herself as a little 9-year-old would be. And, man, her dad comes in and he uses science as a way to calm her down a bit. And she seems really interested in science. And then later on in the movie, when we see that she's become a scientist, that makes a lot of sense. And also the fact that they bonded over science, when you see them working together on the serum, bonding over science again, that makes a lot of sense. Meanwhile, the Batista setup, I mean, you hardly saw any of him and his daughter together. You didn't even set up the family relationship all that much. You had a flashback to him having to kill his wife, and he was crying while he did it. So obviously he didn't want to. Obviously he loved her, but we never really saw him loving her. And we never saw any of the prior interactions of him and his daughter. It was just holding the family photo in the montage, as they did with all the characters, showing them, holding the photo of them in their normal lives before they had to fight the zombies. And then you're just kind of thrust into this situation where him and his daughter are at odds a bit, and yeah, you just didn't feel it anywhere near as much. And that's because they didn't show as much as the Tomorrow War did. Show don't tell is the old adage of how to write the best. Don't tell people, show them. And that kind of segues into my next point of the setup, and that's the premise being set up. And strangely enough, this is a weird one, because I think Army of the Dead showed the situation occurring better than Tomorrow War did. Tomorrow War kind of did tell you a bit. First, with the future people just showing up at a World Cup game and telling everyone what has happened, and that the future, there's aliens that are kicking our asses. And then the next kind of phase of everything that was happening, them sending the military through to the future to fight the aliens, to help the future people, and most of them not coming back, and then civilians getting drawn into it. Like, they had some clips and stuff to show you somewhat, but it was basically two exposition dumps back to back, but it was done in a somewhat effective way. Like the news montage, although it was exposition, it got through it pretty quickly, and it made sense as a way for exposition to be happening. It wasn't just, as you often see, where the worst exposition is two characters talking to each other about something they both already know and just explaining it to each other. It's like, yeah, you fucking know already. When you go to Army of the Dead, man, they did show a lot more. But the problem is, show isn't better when what you show is fucking stupid. And that's that opening scene, that introduction scene of the army shipping something dangerous away. Ooh, and some of the worst dialogue between the two dudes driving the truck you've ever seen. And then the complete coincidence, the plot convenience, which, look, plot convenience, Tomorrow War has some of that as well. And I'll get into that when I go through plot. But the plot convenience of just, there just happens to be a couple who just got married and they're fucking engaging in roadhead, and the dude is just so distracted by getting his dick sucked that he plows into this convoy of military trucks. And so that was stupid. And then the actual military guys trying to fight the zombie was stupid. And they had an open truck. They could have just got in and tried to drive over, or even better, drive away in, or even better, try to drive over the zombie. But instead they try to run out into the desert when it's already been shown that this zombie is fast and vicious. So, yeah, that scene was freaking stupid. The part that they showed that was good in the setup to Army of the Dead was the montage. I think everyone liked that introductory montage. I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. But, like everything in the movie, I thought it went on a bit too long. And it also had the consequence of rushing through the familial relationship, as I already touched on. They just showed Batista and his family, Batista in a Christmas sweater, holding up a family photo. And that's supposed to show us that they had a great family relationship, rather than us actually seeing that. But, yes, the montage was pretty good. The montage was a lot of fun. And what it showed us was, it was a bit of a time jump from that opening scene to the montage. And it showed us that the virus is now taken over. This is what's happening in Vegas. And it kind of rushed us through the period of people escaping Vegas and it getting closed off and whatnot. And then, yeah. So the premises being set up, there's some equality there, because yes, Army of the Dead didn't tell, but half of what it showed was shit, and the other half was pretty good, but went on too long. Whereas the Tomorrow War, yes, it told us, but it did it in a fairly effective and efficient way. That is the good stuff. Next, we get into comparable characters. And starting off that chat, we got Pratt versus Batista. And look, Batista did his best. Batista did a great job. I'm not ragging on Batista. One of his best performances yet. But I still don't think he has quite the acting chops that Pratt does. And I'm not saying Pratt is the best actor in the world either. He's no Daniel Day-Lewis, but he's just a bit more seasoned than old Teast. Even more important than that, he's got so much more charm and charisma, and it shines through on the screen. Chris Pratt, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this Parks and Rec outtakes compilation where everyone, it's bloopers and stuff like that, and cast making each other crack up. Pratt's doing most of it, and he's the funniest guy there by the looks of things. And that show, that cast, had some heavy hitters when it came to comedians and especially comedic actors. And Pratt's in there just almost dancing circles around him with how funny he is, and goddamn, he is charming. And he's got a way of being able to make that come through on screen. I like Batista fine. I think he's done pretty well after leaving wrestling. But he's not on that level of Pratt. There is a reason why Pratt is Star-Lord, the lead of Guardians of the Galaxy. And Batista is Drax, a very solid support man. He's great in that role as Drax, by the way. Doesn't have to talk much. He plays with the irony. But yeah, the brunt of the charisma just shines out of Star-Lord. And with these two leading men competing against each other, Pratt is just, that cut above old Teast. No offense to Teast whatsoever. And also, character-wise, I did like Pratt's a little more. Out of the characters in Army of the Dead, Batista's was the best one, as he should be, being the lead. But for the reasons I've already mentioned about building the relationship with the daughter and paying it off when they see each other again in the future, and then paying it off at the end with him being so desperate to save the world. Now, that's a great line at the end, too, when he goes to see Red Shirt Army Guy, who's a bit of a nihilist because he knows he's going to die in 6 months anyway. And the dude's like, there's no point trying to save this world. And Pratt's like, I'm not trying to save the world. Like, I'm just trying... He doesn't even say that. He says, I'm just trying to save my daughter. And if saving the world... If I have to save the world to do that, I'm going to do it. And it's like, yeah, that's a great line. So we already discussed how that character dynamic was built better. And we'll also get into like how his character works better through the plot as well when I get into the plot. Then we have the two daughters, comparable characters. Yvonne Strahovski, I think, did a better job than the actress who played Batista's daughter. I don't remember the character's name. I don't know the actress's name. I guess that kind of tells you a little something about that. Strahovski wasn't like heads and shoulders amazingly better at acting than this other girl, but she was better. She was more seasoned. She was more natural in the role. But even more importantly than that, her character was way better. And I mean way fucking better. The Army of the Dead daughter. What was she fucking doing? First of all, you've got a completely legit reason for Tomorrow War daughter to be in the situation she's in. One, she's got a love for science, which has been set up. Two, she's grown up in a world knowing that in 30 years' time, there's going to be a massive alien attack and it's going to wipe out most of the world. So you'd think children growing up in that environment would be, somewhat militaristic, like taken through military ranks and whatnot. Like almost everyone would have to join the army. So her being a science person and a military person and being at the place she's at makes complete sense. Batista's daughter coming into the fucking zombie zone is dumb as fuck. And she's going in there to find her friend who basically abandoned her children by running in there. And if you go in there and get killed too, those children are just going to have no one to look after them. And you constantly put everyone else in danger by fucking up the main thrust of what you're supposed to do by going off to try to save this chick who shouldn't have been in there in the first fucking place. And she does get people killed. Batista's daughter gets people killed. Whereas Tomorrow War daughter, she sacrifices herself for the good of the world. She knows she needs to die. They synthesize a toxin that can not only take out the male aliens, but the female one who's more aggressive and is the breeder and is more important. And she's like, take this back to your time so you can kill them there. I know that I'm going to die here without it, and the rest of the world's going to die here without it. I mean, you could say she's sacrificing the world to do that, but like she knows that's the only option, and she's willing to give her life for it, and she's just a way better character. Way better. Then the only other comparable character I'm going to talk about is the comparison between the two pilots. You got J.K. Simmons and Tig Notaro. And look, J.K. is just a better actor than Tig, and he gave a better performance. I don't care what you say. He's better. I heard a lot of people loved what Tig did in it. I don't know. I just found it kind of irritating. She had to wisecrack every single line and just had this smirk on her face the whole time like she was too cool to be there. And she was too cool to be there because she wasn't there. That's another reason J.K. Simmons was better. He actually acted in the scenes with the people. And I'm not saying Tig was too cool to be there and just had herself digitally added because she didn't want to be around everyone. It's because it was supposed to be Chris D'Elia playing the part. But he got taken out because he was too problematic. And they digitally yanked Tig into it, and my God, like you can't bounce off someone who wasn't there. You know what I mean? That's why Simmons feels more natural in the scenes he's in, and also character-wise, he had more of a reason to be there. He had an actual connection. It was a plot convenience, as I'm going to get into. I keep saying that when we get to plot, but he was actually Chris Pratt's dad. There was a connection. There was a character growth and development between the two to add to the story. But bloody Tig was just some chick that they knew that could fucking fly a helicopter. And they just got her and she's like, yeah, I'll come. Like, you give me money, I don't care why. It's like, oh yeah, great. Fantastic character. So yeah, they're my comparable characters. There's probably more, but I think those three were the main three you could compare, and 3 out of 3 of them I thought were better in Tomorrow War. Now, let's get into the plot. Yes. Look, I'm not going to say that fucking Tomorrow War had the best plot in the world. There were definitely some plot conveniences in there, I'll tell you that much. First of all, we already touched on it with his dad. His dad just happens to be an anti-government pilot who knows how to fly stealthily into areas the government can't track, which is what they need when they fly into Russia at the end without the military's permission. Just so happens his dad has those skills. Another plot convenience, he just so happens to be standing next to and put in a unit with and become buddies with Chris Pratt, a geologist, a really smart geologist. I know they'd be put in the same unit because they're both research scientists, but he's the right type of science for exactly what they need to know what to look for when they go to the glacier and know, like, how to find shit and whatnot. And also, Chris Pratt is a science teacher. Just so happens that this guy ends up being the one who needs the most important guy to save the world, and he just happens to be a science teacher who has in his class a kid who's obsessed with ancient volcanoes, and that ends up being the key to find out where the fucking aliens came from in the first place. Turns out they crash landed thousands of years ago and got frozen up under the ice caps, and they can know that because they had certain soil under their toenails that came from like Asia when they're in Russia and European Russia, that is, under their toenails, like I said. And it's like, well, how could that dirt have gotten there? And he's like, oh, well, the volcano from thousands of years ago spread ash everywhere, so maybe they landed there then. Well, it didn't land there then. They had to dig up through it, and that's also what made them realize, shit, they fucking crash landed here over 1,000 years ago. That's why we can't figure out where they landed. They they didn't come in the year you thought they did. They came thousands of years ago, and it's just once the ice caps melted, they climbed their way out. So, yeah, just happening to have that volcano kid in his class, huge plot convenience. So, look, there's 3 plot conveniences that you could fucking poke at and say, you know, a bit silly in the plot, but look, it's a dumb fucking popcorn movie. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. And what's more important is the overall plot. Tomorrow War just used it better than Army of the Dead. They just used it better. Now, how'd they use it better? Look, they followed a more structured plot line. They didn't waste plot. Like, as I've already said, both of them were too long. But at least everything that happened in Tomorrow War was following on from the other and important to what was going on in the plot. A lot more efficiency, a lot less waste. Now, and you can also say the but, therefore rule and the and then. There was way more and thenning in Army of the Dead. And what that is, that's the South Park writers have this thing that's like, when you're setting up things to move the plot, you have to be able to use the words but or therefore. So, the people from the future arrive on Earth, and they want to have us help them kill these people from the future, but they send the military there, so most of the military dies. Therefore, they have to recruit civilians. Therefore, Chris Pratt ends up getting recruited. He gets sent there. But when he's going through the thing, something messes up with the temporal layout and doesn't drop the people where they need to. So the 2 teams that were going, most of them die from falling out of the sky, and he's just lucky to be one of the ones that land in the pool. Therefore, his research team turn into like a tactical team that needs to go and find the shit. You know, so on and so forth. Whereas bloody Army of the Dead is a bunch of and-thens. Like, a guy comes and gets Batista and says he needs to fucking get a team together. I mean, and then he gets a team together. I mean, you could say therefore he gets a team together, but really, that's an and then. They go in there, and then they're confronted by the queen zombie who needs him to do something. Therefore, what's her name offers up the dude as a sacrifice, and then he gets taken away, and then they need to move into different places, and then. That's basically what fucking Army of the Dead is all about. It's about and-thenning. And it sets up a bunch of shit. Well, first of all, it meanders, takes too long doing stuff, and does stuff that doesn't really matter. And also, it opens up plot lines that just go nowhere. Fucking dangling plot lines. They first get into the army, to the Las Vegas sealed off zone, and the coyote chick who gets them in there, like, there's piles of dead zombie bodies, and they're like, oh, glad these guys aren't alive. And she's like, just hope they don't get wet, because if they get wet, they reanimate for an amount of time. Do we see that? Nah. Just don't say it. They just bring it up and don't say it. One of the things I was most interested in, when they're first going into the vault, and they see a bunch of skeletons with the same clothes on as them, and the black guy says, maybe we're stuck in a time loop and we keep having to go through and do the same thing over and over again. I'm like, oh, that's actually really interesting. Has this movie just turned on a dime and become a completely different movie? Are we going to explore that a little bit? No, they just do fucking nothing with it. Nothing at all. And there's more examples throughout. Can't think of them off the top of my head. But, so there we go. just wasting time, meandering around the plot and bringing up shit that you'd never bring up again, and thenning your way through the plot. It's just a whole bunch of reasons why Tomorrow War had a better plot. Yes. So, another point I made was, and I've already said this, they had those long run times, but Tomorrow War gets more done in it. They had like a similar mission. Get into a place, grab something, get out. That was basically the entire movie for Army of the Dead. Yeah, you had a bit of setup time. You had a little after they got out and Batista and his daughter. But like, you got to say, a good 2 hours of that movie was them on this heist mission. Tomorrow War did. It wasn't a heist. It was a rescue and recovery mission to get all that genetic shit I already talked about. They did that in 20 fucking minutes, man. Because the first 40 minutes was setting up a bunch of stuff. Like I said, setting up the family relationship, setting up them getting recruited, setting up them getting sent into the thing. 20 minutes they spent doing this recovery mission. And then, and this is not plot and then, this is like what we got in the rest of the movie and then, we got to spend the next hour and 20 minutes doing more interesting shit. Seeing Chris Pratt and his daughter work together and synthesize that toxin and work out the shit. Seeing Pratt go back to the time he was from and try to figure out a way to stop these aliens before they get there. Seeing them go and actually defeat the aliens on their own. Our heroes were the ones to defeat the monster threat, rather than them just getting out and the military nuclear bombing the entire city. And it reminds me of a interview I once saw from the Rick and Morty writers. I think it was Ryan Ridley who said this. It might have been Justin Roiland, but I'm pretty sure it was Ryan Ridley. And he said, we were so used to leaning on Dan and having, as in Dan Harmon, and having him be the one to wrangle most of the story and control where the story went. And there was a period where, well, at least for one episode, where he couldn't be there. He was working on something else. I'm guessing it was Community Season 6 because it was around that first season of Rick and Morty. And they're like, we panicked a little because we didn't have Dan to rely on and we had to write this thing ourselves. But we buckled down and we wrote it, and we wrote something we thought was pretty good. And Dan came back and he looked at it and he was like, yeah, this is really good. This is a great first act. And they were all like, oh shit, we thought this was the whole story. But that just shows fucking how Dan's mind works and how good he is at story writing, that he wants to explore things deeper. So he uses what they had as an entire story as a first act, and then once you get through that, it's like, well, where does it lead? Where, how much further can we go into this? How deep down the rabbit hole can we explore? And that's what we got with Tomorrow War. We got way more than just a recovery heist thing. And look, not every movie has to be that. Not everything has to be the most complicated. You can just have a nice heist movie, but it doesn't need to be 2.5 fucking hours long of just the pure heist. I haven't even seen Ocean's 11, but I'm guessing a lot of that is them fucking setting up the plan and shit like that. I doubt fucking the majority of the movie is them doing it. I mean, AntMan, that's essentially a heist movie. It gets shit on a little bit amongst the MCU, but I really enjoyed it. I thought, well, Paul Rudd is just a fucking international treasure. I was going to call him a national treasure, but I'm not American, and I treasure him. And fucking Michael Payne is so funny in it. And there's a lot of great comedy. I know the story's not the best in that, but like the humor and whatnot carries it through the actors. But the actual heist part of that, it's just the third act. It's not the entire fucking movie. And if you're going to have an entire movie be a heist, I reckon you can probably get it done in an hour and 20 minutes, maybe 90 minutes, which is what I already said. Army of the Dead should have been running at. Oh shit. Fuck, you guys still here? Jeez. Well, I guess you're just waiting for me to wrap this thing up. So, in conclusion, why do I think Tomorrow War was a better movie? Characters were better. Plot was better. Acting was better. For the most part. Look, I'm not going to pretend the acting was stellar all the way through Tomorrow War. But I did think it was better overall. The direction was better. At least it was in fucking focus. The efficiency was better. As I've already talked about. Using the runtime. And look, you get all those things together, it just makes for a better movie. I'm the wino. Thanks for watching.